Hello, partners in crime. It's great to see you today. We have with us J. Herman Kleiger, who is a board certified clinical psychologist and a trained psychoanalyst in Maryland. And he lives there with his wife, and he is blessed with wonderful children and amazing grandchildren. Um, Writing about people and their struggles has been integral to his professional life. He's authored 6 professional books, but unable to resist the lure of fiction, he also published his debut novel, The Ink Blot, in 2020, and then he wrote Tears Are Only Water in 2023. And today we're here to talk about his newest release, Whispers, which was just released. Welcome.
Thank you, Gina. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you with us. Can you tell us a little bit about your new book, Whispers?
Sure. Whispers is a psychological thriller. I like to call it or refer to a subgenre called clinical fiction.
Mhm.
And it's about the hunt for a serial killer who's targeting famous psychiatrists who are involved in a landmark study. And the story follows the lead character, Special Agent Nicola Kitts, who was formerly a Marine Corps gunnery sergeant who earned the Silver Star in Afghanistan. And then after that, she was a sheriff's deputy in Colorado, and that's where we met her in Tears Are Only Water. And as a recently minted FBI agent, she joins because she has a background in social work. She joins the FBI's vaunted behavioral assessment unit, like we see in the show Criminal Minds or in the book Mindhunter. And there she meets with a group of quirky behavioral scientists who attempt to profile this killer. And the killer is leaving these twisted poems and arcane mathematical formula at the scene of the crime. So they think they found a person of interest, a woman who's about 30 years old with the unlikely name of Raevyn Nevenmoore. And Raevyn happened to be the last person that saw the latest victim alive. So they're quite interested in her. Now, Raevyn is a very colorful character who has a checkered past. She was a fraternal twin. She and her brother Finch were the product of something called I believe it's called selective growth restriction syndrome, where in utero, one of the twins receives the majority of the maternal nutrients and the other twin gets the leftovers. So this sets the stage for Raevyn becoming a bigger, stronger, faster, more accomplished kid than her little brother Finch. And so there's a lot of backstory about the two of them. Raevyn becomes a star athlete, a gymnast, a star student, and then there's sort of this interesting reversal in high school that takes place in terms of the power dynamics. They're from a prominent family in Bethesda. Both parents are working physicians, and the family is beset with a number of tragedies. About 5 years before the book takes place, the parents are murdered in their beach home. Several months after that, or within a year of that, brother Finch jumps off a bridge, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, to kill himself. And then after that, Raevyn is competing in the U.S. Olympic trials gymnastics event and suffers a humiliating manic episode for the world to see. And after that sort of falls into obscurity. She lives in her childhood home with her older sister, who's sort of her protector. And so the FBI is very interested in her. At one point she is arrested, but then released. Raevyn tells her therapist a wild story about how Finch is actually living in their house, that he faked his death, and that you're familiar with the phenomenon called frogging, where somebody actually lives in a house unbeknownst to the residents. So this is a big house in Bethesda, Maryland. So Raevyn tells this story to her therapist that Finch is living in the house and telling her all about the murders. And of course, there are other suspects that the story follows the investigation of. Most of the behavioral sciences team disputes this. They think that Raevyn is mad, that she's delusional. Some think that she's involved in the murders and she's just a clever psychopath who's using her illness as a ruse. But Special Agent Kitts, who struggles with her own demons, her past trauma and so forth, is drawn to Raevyn and finds her sympathetic and has reason to believe her, but at the same time is struggling with her own doubts. And her doubts about Raven's veracity leads her to begin doubting herself, her perceptions, her values. And so all of this is taking place as they hunt for the killer. And it leads to its final conclusion.
It's I found Whispers to be, I want to say it's kind of what you make it, because it can be a really light, fun read, but it's also very, very deep if you look into all of what's going on. There's a lot going on in there.
Well, I thank you. I'd like to hear that. I would. You said deep. I would also say, compared to the other books I've written, this is darker. I mean, look at the cover. It really conveys a sense of ominous, eerie, foreboding quality. And I really wanted to make this more of a compelling mystery. And there's something about serial killers that is, I think, has captured the public psyche. I wrote a newsletter, either a newsletter or a blog recently, about what makes serial killing fiction and film about serial killers so compelling to people. What is it that just really grabs people? So I didn't set out to write a book about serial killers. I knew that when I wrote Whispers, I wanted to develop the crime aspect of the story. An editor for Tears Are Only Water, the book that came before Whispers, had said to me that, Jim, it seems like you set out to write a mental health book and then kind of slapped on this crime story. And she saw me. I mean, that was true. So in Tears Are Only Water, I really tried to rewrite it and develop the crime part. In Whispers, I really wanted to even delve more into the police procedural part, the FBI. There's something, again, I think that people are kind of interested in. FBI, the BAU, the Behavioral Assessment Unit. So I did want to make it a whodunit, but at the same time, in all of my books, the clinical fiction piece has been to write about damaged and broken people and their struggles to heal. So, and the other aspect too is in all my books, I want to have the book be a little bit of a Rorschach ink blot. I have a background in the Rorschach, and I like there to be a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity that people kind of wrestle with.
Yes, and there certainly is. So when I was reading, you have two main characters, Nicola Kitts and Raevyn Nevenmoore, who I swear every time I read it, I say Nevermore to remind myself that's not correct. So can you tell us a little bit about each of them and their similarities and their differences? Because in a lot of ways, they're very similar.
Yeah, they're drawn, Kitts is certainly drawn to Raevyn, and it's never clear exactly why. It's never made explicit what it is that draws her. One of the things about Kitts's background that's really laid out clearly in the first book, Tears Are Only Water, the book that Whispers a sequel for, is her fascination with people. I mean, she's a real die-hard law enforcement person. She comes from a military background. Her father, her grandfather were Marines. And so she's a real by-the-book law enforcement person. But she's also fascinated in people and their stories. So I think that's one of the reasons she's drawn to Raevyn. And Raevyn, the last name was originally Nevermore, so you're not at all far from the source. I changed it to Nevenmoore because I just wanted a degree of separation from too much of a Poe guidance. They're both strong women. They've both been successful through much of their lives, although Kitts has kind of had more of an upward swing in terms of her career trajectory. Raevyn was at the pinnacle of success, but like Icarus, she flew too close to the sun, she crashed. They're both tragic figures in some ways, because what you see on the surface is not what lies beneath. Both of them have a sense of falseness. They have a great deal of guilt and sense of betrayal in their lives. And in the book, it's never made explicit what it is that Kitts sees in Raevyn, but she's somehow drawn to her. Yeah.
Yeah. So what inspired you to write Whispers and delve into this world of psychological thrillers? You mentioned that you wanted to do more of a crime thriller and get more into the whodunit part. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, again, it was really prompted by the comment from the editor of Tears Are Only Water, who had been previously a writing instructor that I had admired a lot, and I had asked her to do a professional editing of Tears Are Only Water. So her comment about how the crime story was a little slapdash was a bit of a challenge to me, and she didn't present it in a challenging way, but it really made me think that if I'm going to continue writing, I want to stretch out a bit, and I'd like to. I'm really interested in reading and BBC and BritBox crime dramas. I love that stuff, and I wanted to use my imagination to develop more of a thriller piece. I knew, because of who I am and what I've done, that there would be a story involving damaged, complex characters who are struggling with their own demons and trying to find usually maladaptive ways of coping with that. One of the things about Kitts is, besides being an ardent denier, she also drinks heavily, drinks whiskey, and spends a lot of her time trying to tell herself that things that matter really don't matter. And so I knew that character would continue with her struggles in Whispers. But like I said, I really wanted people to keep guessing. I think one of the things about Tears Are Only Water is that many people sort of figured things out. The breadcrumbs were a little bit too big. So what I wanted to do in Whispers was to have a number of sort of false flags, if you will, that like in a good show, you have many false leads, people that really seem like they are likely the culprit, and then there's some sort of twist. So I wanted there to be a lot of twistiness.
Yeah, and there is you put up a lot of suspects, and there's reasons to suspect them and reasons to doubt them, and it's very interesting the way it flows. So I was thinking, tears or water, right?
Tears Are Only Water. Yeah.
Tears are only water. Was this is a sequel to that, but this is completely standalone. You do a lot of references where necessary, but not overly. I mean, there's nothing too much in there, and it completely flows. Can you tell me why it was important to pull that together and to write the sequel as opposed to a new standalone book?
Right. Well, I started out. It's interesting to think back about how a lot of these stories began and then completely changed. Completely changed. So I hadn't set out to write a sequel. I was about 2 years ago, I guess, beginning to have some ideas about a new book. And I had a couple of ideas. And one of my readers had communicated to me that she hopes that there would be a sequel, which I think it's a nice thing to hear, because what it means is that they don't want to say goodbye to the characters. So that really, and this is one person who I know and admire, and really took her words to heart. So I had one character, Nicola, or Nicola, as I call her, who seemed like she's a strong character. She's an interesting character. And I think more than the other maybe 3 or 4 principal characters in Tears Are Only Water, she really seemed like she could have a new life, that her story could continue. And I also wanted it to be a standalone book, which meant that the challenge was how to smuggle in enough backstory so that it wasn't hitting the reader with a lot of boring expository writing, a lot expository review of the history, but to bring it in terms of memories, flashbacks, time shifts, so that people could learn more about the struggles in Nicola's past. So it's nice to hear that you thought it was standalone, and that one doesn't need to necessarily read the prequel.
No, it was really well done. So now I know that some of the research or some of the backstory and knowledge that you needed is based on your day job, but some of it isn't. So can you tell us about the research that was needed to be done to fill out the parts that you didn't already know, and what those may
So
have been?
in each of the books that I've written, there's been vast areas that I knew nothing about. The first book, The 11th Inkblot, is a historical fiction that takes place in World War I on the Eastern Front. So I had to research that. There's also a theme of watchmaking in that book, so I had to delve into that. In Tears Are Only Water, there's a prominent native indigenous healing. There's a therapist who is a indigenous healer, a Navajo psychologist. So that invited a lot of research. In Whispers, it had to do with the FBI crime procedure stuff. I don't think I got it completely right, but I did. That's one of the things I had to dig into. Some of the details about investigations, and some of the minutia about how one would identify a body when they don't have DNA. I mean, little pieces like that,
Mhm.
because the brother Finch, who throws himself off the bridge, there was never a body recovered, but the forensic anthropologists and scientists concluded that they had enough evidence that it was he. So I had to do some research into how they would know that. So those are the things that are kind of fun to dig into. Math has always been a part of it. The equations that were left at the scenes of the crime. I consulted with a mathematician about these Gaussian. They're called Gaussian formulas, Gaussian equations, which again, when people read some of these books, they go, geez, I didn't know you knew about that. And of course, the answer is, well, I don't. I don't. You probably know more about that than I do. So,
I loved the math. That was a really cool element of the book.
yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, so you pull in triggers into this book as well, and
I
some
pull in what?
very
I'm sorry.
triggers,
Okay.
like mental illness and trauma and some other things. Now, you had to approach this carefully. Can you tell us a little bit about how you approached it so as to not upset most readers?
Wow. Well, it probably does upset some readers, and those are the people who might give me a 1-star rating on Goodreads or Amazon. Clearly, there are people that won't like some of the language and will find some of the mental health themes upsetting. PTSD, psychosis, and suicide. Those are themes that have been in the books. But I think people who are interested in reading these books are not put off by those. Again, some are and might not finish the books. But all of those things, I think the public, they're in the public domain. People know about trauma and mental illness. So what I want to do as a psychologist in writing these books is to, I guess, desensitize people a bit to the fact that people do struggle with these problems, both outside and inside the therapy setting, and clearly to humanize the people who have these struggles, to make them less foreign, less scary.
So I'm going to lighten it up a little bit, and I want you to share why Nicola's roommate is such a big part of the book.
Oh, her roommate.
Yes.
Are you talking about her bird?
Yeah, Langston.
I love birds.
Yeah.
In fact, a part of my dedication for Tears Are Only Water and Whispers was to birds. I used to own large birds before I realized that birds shouldn't be in cages. But I'm an avid bird enthusiast, and the hyacinth macaw is a regal creature. I mean, they're just beautiful. And so Kitts has this deep relationship with Langston, who actually saved her life. As not to get into too much spoiler material, but we do learn that Langston was key in saving her in Tears Are Only Water. I think it also, somebody recently wrote me and said, they love Kitts and they are looking forward to her next story. But two people actually have said, we would like her to be able to grow and not be stuck with being an alcoholic. or having such restrictive relationships. So
Yeah.
I take that to heart.
Yeah. She's a very hurt individual.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She is.
So besides a amazing story, what is something that you hope readers take from Whispers?
Well, thank you for saying an amazing story. I want people to be entertained,
Yeah.
clearly, uh, and I'd like people to be moved. I'd like them to feel a lot of different things. The kind of compelled to keep reading and turning the pages. So entertained, moved. I'd like them to be surprised. And my other books ended with kind of an uplifting surprise. I think Whispers has a surprise, actually two surprises at the end. One's a bit darker than the other. So I'd like people to kind of either outwardly or inwardly gasp a bit with a sense of surprise that they didn't see that coming. And then in terms of the mental health piece, that people can heal they by facing their problems. All of my books have had featured a prominent healer, therapist, mental health person,
Yeah.
and so that's important message as well.
Now, are there any besides that behind the scenes stories that you can share about your writing process or anything interesting?
Um, well, I become comfortable. Well, first of all, I want to continue developing my skills as a writer and a self-editor and so forth. I what's interesting to me is I usually begin with a seed, and it might be a scene, it might be a title, um, a vague concept that really then emerges into a story. I don't really plot or plan things out. I've said before that my process feels a little bit like driving on a dark road where I'm following my headlights and I can't really see what's ahead, but I'm following along. And then sometimes the road ends or the light goes out and I'm sitting there in the dark and I just have to wait it out. So that's one thing. The other is the challenge I feel, the dissonance and discomfort sometimes when I've got a number of little islands, little plot islands or characters, and the challenge is the building of bridges, the weaving it together into a compelling narrative that makes sense, that doesn't have that isn't contradicting itself. But again, these are not in any way unique to me, I'm sure. Um, I did try in this book, Whispers, something different. I got a big poster board with Post-its to put the different chapters in place. I kind of felt that was helpful to kind of keep track of a timeline.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actual writing process is a really thrilling process. Editing is the hard piece. Rewriting and editing is really hard, but worthwhile. The story gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that completely. So can we hope to see Nicola and the BAU team again?
Well, Nicola's story will continue in a book called Paradolia that I've begun, but her it will. You know what? I did not want to write a series of FBI
Mhm.
hunt for a killer. There's a lot of books like that who have done that far better than I could hope to do. I mean, you can think of several authors who have a character who is involved in different crimes. And I want her to grow in a different direction. So I won't say anything more than the fact that she will continue, hopefully in a surprising new direction. And the, the term pareidolia basically means things that look like what they're really not. It's a common phenomenon when you see something that looks like it has meaning, but it doesn't. For example, an electrical plug might look like a face, or some image of a face on a piece of toast or something that looks like it has meaning, but it really doesn't. So something about that idea is compelling. And once again, I'm back to the idea of, or the beginning, which is having the idea of a title, and it might change, but that I like, and then and a character I like, the desire to go in a new direction with her life, and then I've already got kind of an initial plot line, but I'm not sure where it's going to go.
Oh, I'm excited to learn more. Well,
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for us today.
Well, thank you for having me and asking such wonderful questions. And I thank you for saying nice things about Whispers. I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you writing it. It was a pleasure to read, so thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Gina. Thank you so much.
And partners in crime, you need to check out Whispers, follow along on the tour, and grab yourself a copy of the book. And we will see you guys again soon. Thank you so much.
Bye.